I'm gonna recite a quote from Maya Angelou because it's awesome. People forget what you've said, they forget what you did, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. That's what the Design Center is all about, is how we make people feel.
This is a great panel. I've been looking forward to this panel all along. The four people up here are just incredible experts in their field, and just you're going to have a ton of opportunity to learn so much from them, and I'm excited about this panel a lot. I'm going to start with Nancy Giangeruso here. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, I'm Nancy Giangeruso, Nancy G. Run my own business now. It's called Build It, Create It, Design It, or BCD-IT. I actually cater to the industry, but more on the back office now, making sure that the small independent boutique builders, designers, general contractors, architects, I help them run their office, make sure they're all making money. Previous to that, for 25 years, I was opening design centers across the country for new home builders, setting them up, running them, and making sure they made money.
Hi, I'm Pat Crowley, and I'm with Epix Interiors in Phoenix, Arizona. I have been in the design center business for 35 years. I graduated from the Harvard of the West, as I told my dear friend back there. That's the University of Arizona. And from there, I went to work immediately for Shaw Industries. And Shaw Industries sent me to Southern California, and I started calling on home building design centers immediately. Quickly learned the difference between floor covering retailers and design centers and how they operated. And I loved it. And after 11 years, I left Shaw and started with a group of flooring contractors in Seattle, Washington. And that company grew and grew and grew. And we became design center pioneers. And I love the industry and love the space, and glad to be here.
I'm Mike Moxley. I'm the president and founder of ThreadKore. We're a ERP software built for home builders. So we handle everything from land acquisition all the way through customer care and warranty, accounting, finance, design selections, purchase orders, or all of it that it takes to run the home builder. Prior to starting that, I was a CFO for a good-sized builder and desperately wanted better information. And when I couldn't find it, I left to create a company so that I could get it.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jane Moore. I own a company called Success Strategies, and we work with hundreds of builders in over 40 states to help builders deliver a consistently elevated customer experience, to work with them on profit and margin and revenue optimization, to create streamlined internal efficiencies across departments, to leverage design to sell more homes. And we've also created over 175 unique design studios for builders all over the country. And we've been honored with over 30 awards for Best Design Center in the country from NAHB. And I've loved talking to some of you guys over the last couple days.
Great. Obviously, this is a panel that has just a ton of experience in this area, and I'm excited. But we decided we wanted to kind of start with the question, what are the best practices that yield excellent results in the options sales and customer satisfaction? Mike, we want to ask, how do you measure those results? And so, Mike, what are awesome results?
Yeah, so I think that's the best part is to first define what it means to have awesome results. I think all too often it's really easy to look at something like profitability and say profitability equals awesome results. And I'm an accountant, so I don't necessarily think that's a bad answer. But there are a lot of other things that you can look for as you're building out the design and making sure that the clients ultimately walk away with a product with which they're satisfied. The trades are doing work that they understand how to do, they're performing, and they're able to deliver a quality product. You're coming back with a product that you can stand behind, the warranty's there for it, and then it's profitable. And so I think the first part is understanding what it means to be awesome. And so I would start there. And then it's breaking down those pieces to understand, are you able to actually capture what your margin is? Are you able to actually quantify how the install is going? Are you getting feedback from the trades? Are you gathering the feedback from the client? So there's been a lot of focus over the last few days on data and how important data is, and it's really making sure that you're capturing the right data and that you're actually acting on that.
Nancy, dig us down a little bit deeper on that and share what your experience has.
Yeah, so when we were prepping for this, that was actually the first question that Mike had said is, how do you measure this? And of course, as you guys all know me now, I've raised my hand first and said I had an answer for that. So let's go. So total, I think in my years, it's your total team commitment. And for me, that starts from the top of the company. Whatever builder you're working with, they have to buy into the whole process. Starts with, in the best results that I've ever had with builders, Tri Point Homes, William Lyon Homes, Warmington Homes, Irvine Pacific, it started from the very top. So they knew their mission statement, they knew who they were, they held to it. And when I say that, that means everybody is saying the same thing, so that the designer is not the only one that has to be the bad guy to say things. And that's how life had become years ago. So communicating the same message throughout the experience, establishing effective processes. So you have your customer-facing team, and those are your designers, your sales teams, your superintendent, your customer service, and your escrow. So we all interact with each other from a design studio experience with the home buyer. We are the ones that are facing the customer up front. So as long as we're all sending the same message and saying the same thing, there's no misunderstanding. The next one is your internal team. And your customers for your internal team are the ones that are scheduling your first appointment, whether it's your designer or you have an appointment coordinator or somebody else is scheduling your first appointment, it starts there. Your internal team could be purchasing, it could be scheduling, actually doing pricing and product changes and things like that happen throughout, and making sure that pricing is done correctly in your systems that you have. And then your external team, those are your manufacturers, your vendors, and your subcontractors, and your reps. You want to make sure you're in good communication with all of everybody on the team, because it's really important that you have a buy-in from everybody. So the next one is a well-managed design studio. To me, that equals increased profits. So it becomes a well-oiled machine. So we've got people want what they want in the models. So when I started in the early 90s in this industry, I was surprised to see that the models had lots of little signs all over this, and I know, Jane, you'll remember this, that said for decorator item only. I mean, and those were those items, and people would come through the design center and wanted to purchase those items. And so at some point we started adding those to our role at the design studio. And because salespeople didn't need to sell them, we needed them to sell houses. And we were able to actually speak with the clients about it. So we started doing that. And I think that this has to do with communication. So just communicate with everybody. And if you think you've not communicated enough, or you think you've communicated enough, do it again. A friend of mine, Mike Moore, used to say to us when he was doing designer training, so when you think you're done, ask 3 more questions. And so then you'll find out, because a lot of times people will nod at you and you think they're understanding, and you want to make sure that communication is clear. And then we manage communities weekly. We will get together internally with the back office, manage them weekly, show up over at the builders, doing their escrow meetings, and making sure that we were all on the same page. We were all hitting the milestone dates that we needed to hit. And if we didn't hit them, we actually raised our hand early to let them know that we didn't hit them, why, or if a customer was not participating, what was going on, because they need to know that as well. So that was one of the ones that we did. And we actually held each other accountable. It made us stronger, it made us work better, it made us more efficient, and a much better oiled machine. So our goal, outstanding satisfaction for every home buyer. So most of the builders that I've worked with in the years, and I don't know how many are still doing it, but surveys. At the end, I think there was usually a survey after sales, then there was a survey after walks, some framing walks, and then there were surveys after they closed escrow, and then there were surveys a year into it, and then a survey a second year into it. So our builders that we worked with, I know if they got great surveys, and that equaled excellent results for them. So that was, to me, the answer.
Thank you, Nancy. Pat, I think I teed us up in the very first of this track about building trust throughout the process, and that's something you like to dig into and establish integrity. Tell us a little bit about what your vision is for that.
Okay, I will do that. Thank you. And we titled the panel Finishing Strong. So I'm going to speak to finishing strong. I love the design center business, folks. I love it. It's my life, but I also love the operational link to new home construction. And that's really where my career has evolved. I've learned to link operationally to new home construction and how that creates an amazing customer experience. As we think about a remarkable home buying experience from the design center, and Jane and I have worked on these thoughts before as well, but the first thing that the buyer wants to do is they want you to know them, who they are. They need to be known. They want to be enlightened. They need to understand what's going on. They need wisdom for good judgment. They need to be unburdened. They need to have peace of mind with the process. They need to be enchanted. And that creates certainty. But enchantment, this is the biggest purchase of their lives, typically one of two, maybe three times they buy a home. They need to be enchanted. But the last thing is they need to be included. They need to be included in the process and included once the home closes. We've got to embrace them and include them. So those 5 features are really the overarching fundamentals of finishing strong for us. I've got a lot of notes, only 3 slides. I promise to be quick. But I go back to this balance for us in home building and design centers, this balance between control and creativity. In home building, we think of control as effective and competent. But when I speak of control, we need to have control to the build process, not control the personalities that we deal with. We have to control the build process, not the home buyers, the contractors that work for us, or the municipalities. We just can't control those things, but we can control how we build the home. And then when we get to creativity, that's where the enchantment and the artistic approach and the authentic connectivity really happens. And that has to happen in today's world with a digital environment, a wonderful digital environment. Today's contemporary consumer requires a wonderful digital experience. I'm going to recite a quote from Maya Angelou because it's awesome. People forget what you've said. They forget what you did, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. That's what the design center is all about, is how we make people feel. When we go back to this building control, to a home buyer, when we have build control mastery, it makes them feel as if we care that we're building their home and they're part of the process. So that build control mastery and that ability to communicate through the build process goes back to my love of the link between operational excellence and creativity. And that is important for us as the process works down to the creativity and the enchantment, that we build a home that they can understand. And then we get into the enchanting experience where Jane lives and loves and thrives, where Nancy has taught me so much. But buying a home should be one of the best experiences of our lives. And I'm excited about this, and I'm sorry I'm a geek about it, but it should be. But, you think of the birth of your kids and buying a home. Is that a parallel? It should be. It should be there. I went to Augusta National for the first time in 2007, and holy smokes did that leave an imprint in my mind as a golfer. That's what buying a home should be like. I went to the World Series 2 years ago when my Diamondbacks lost to the Texas Rangers with my 2 boys. That was an enchanting experience. So you say, hey, Pat, you're a little bit unreasonable about this stuff. And I'm telling you guys, if you're not unreasonable and you're not bringing that attitude to your home buyers, we're not doing our job properly. We have to be unreasonable about it. And we really have to dig in. So we've got this finishing strong slide. And what I wanted to do is say, hey, our group here, this is $1 billion blueprint. I am an expert at this. I do love it. I'm not an expert because I'm smart. I'm an expert because I'm around people like this. And I've embraced them. And they've taught me everything I need to know. One of my most significant mentors, Mr. Dennis Webb, is sitting down there. He's taught me retail principle after retail principle. He's told me all the days I've had real bad looks when I've tried to do this stuff. But it's not about any one of us. It's all of us linked together doing this. So our panel here really speaks to the fact that in home building, different abilities deserve different approaches, not lower expectations. How many folks have heard, oh, this is a very siloed industry, all of us. that doesn't mean that we have lower expectations. It means that we have to work well together. Let's talk about the different. Nancy has built it, create it, design it. She has built within the professional space of designers, general contractors, architects, engineers, a way to deliver her scaled access and expertise to a boutique type community to include the whole home building industry into our production building world. That's awesome. Jane and Success Strategies, she is the leader by far and away of home personalization and transformation in the industry, by far and away. She eliminates homebuyer headaches, operational headaches. She elevates homebuyer experience. She creates this authentic connection, but she also increases and drives profits there, and that's where it's really linked to the home builder. But she leads the industry in training, hundreds and hundreds of people, if not into the thousands now. And she's created more than 170 design studios. I think it was 175 you just said.
Yeah, between 175 and 200.
So she's the leader in the industry at that look. Dennis and I have done some pretty cool stuff too, but not near to the degree that Jane's done. She also does consulting. And when I say consulting, the big challenge for us in design is, do we have prescient data to the day? And Jane just did a design trends and facts with supplier and manufacturer alignment to keep that prescient for all of us. And Stephen and I watched her for a few hours a couple of weeks ago, but she's always doing that. So, and then her last piece is analysis. And the one thing about this is we never finish in the design center business. We're always getting better, and we have to keep getting better. So Success Strategies is about traveling, hopefully, not arriving. Okay, so we have to continue to travel, hopefully, in our journey. And then there's Mike, trees to keys, ThreadKore. So I talk about the alignment of the systems. His ability to integrate the operational functionality and the complexities, we have to have ThreadKore. We have to have the systems that enable us to deliver the enchanting and creative experience. Without him, this operational facilitating just doesn't go. So we've got to have him. So he aligns home building approaches. Different home builders deserve different alignments. When you think about the number of contractors who build a home, how do you get them to work as a team versus 35 to 40 independent contractors? And that's part of the competence versus amazing experience challenge. He does this from ERP to digital design center. He does have a digital design center component to scheduling, construction, through customer care. So without Mike and his tools, the $1 billion blueprint doesn't stand. And then my group, I'll humbly go through this. I'm very proud of what we've done. And I am an expert at this. I'm not an expert because I know. I'm an expert because I've had my butt kicked for years doing it. We were founded as a group of private floor covering companies on the West Coast. And we got a break in 2005 with Fulton Homes, and we built a design center. And holy smokes, it started to go. We also added cabinetry to our revenue menu in 2005. And that was really to compete with mega multiple scope competitors in Phoenix. In 2005, there were 63,000 homes built in Phoenix. So there just weren't simply enough service providers to service 63,000 homes. So we did that, and then we added countertops. So we had a big revenue stream. And then, oh my goodness, 2007 and 2008 hit, and we had this crash. So we went from 63,000 homes down to 8,000 homes. There were mega companies that were used to working on 15 to 20,000 homes, and layoff. So we had a whole different crisis that was happening, and we listened to our home building partners, and we leveraged the great revenue stream of flooring, cabinetry, and countertops, and we transitioned into a whole new profit stream with design center management. That was the foundational success of the business that we built. It wasn't about our core competences in our revenue builders. Our profit came through what I call technicolor value. We had to look deeper. So the survivor shuffle of just doing flooring, cabinetry, and countertops turned into the design center business. Home builders, though, had to keep selling homes in 07 and 08. So there were three key things that they did to keep selling homes. One was offer incentives. And you know what? The good news for us is that was done through upgrades, a lot of it. So you say, okay, well, they threw you a bone. Okay. So, but the second one added to their cost, just like we're looking at in 25, is they had to provide closing cost assistance in 25, or in 07, 08. In 25, we're having to buy rates down. We talked about forward rate assignments. So that's a parallel. It was different in 07 and 08, but we're there again today. But they also had to start building a better home for true cost savings because people were looking for long-term cost savings. So energy saving and sustainability issues were addressed back in 07 and 08. So, okay, how'd you do this with this company? Well, we mastered digital transparency. That was what we had to do. And through 18, people were still asking me, Pat, you're crazy. You're a flooring company. I said, no, we're not, guys. We're mastering digital transparency. We didn't have a choice. We had to do something different, or we were going to go under, folks. It was bad. So that made us the largest provider of digital design centers in the number of units and dollar revenue in the country. And we balanced these mandatory incentives that the builders had to provide their home buyers with profits. And boom, it worked. It was successful. By 2015, we had 8 production home builders, some of them publicly traded nationals, some like Fulton Homes, like Thrive Home Builders in Denver, private single market builders with 17 design centers over 6 states. But it took Jane. Nancy was with me doing this. It took Mike. It took systems. Our partners were different. But man, we were doing $1 billion in home building options a year. It was $1 billion blueprint. So that is who we are as a panel. But then we had to do this, I call it a humble pivot. And Paul was talking about trust. In 10 particularly, when the market started to go back up and there was this wonderful tax credit. Does everybody remember the tax credit?
Yep.
Sales picked up a little bit then. So then you say, oh, there you go, Pat, they threw you a bone. Well, that was pretty cool, but now we had a whole new problem, and Nancy remembers this. We couldn't get enough buyers through a design center fast enough. And here we were, a flooring company trying to be a design center company, and we had 14 days from contract to design center appointment date to be done. It's like, wow, how are we going to get this done? So we had to do this humble pivot, and this is where we really had to finish strong. When you talk about finishing strong and you're a marathon runner, what do? You pick up the pace. How do you pick up the pace? So for us, it was about elevating our credibility. That's how we picked up the pace. And credibility is a fundamental mandate for trust. If they don't believe in what you're doing, they're never going to trust you. So once again, we had to listen and study and figure it out. This time we did it out of flat out courage, not out of survival. We had to be different out of courage, not to survive. So we developed what is on my chart there, what I call smart trust, what others call smart trust. And it took true courage for us to do this. But what happened when we did this? Our revenues soared. This was the most amazing time in the design center business. When we were pitching these ideas to most home builders, their typical design center revenue was about 12 to 13% of the total sale price of their home. Most builders were in the low 20th percentile with options revenue, or with structural options revenue and design center options. But what we found is after we had this design center mastery going, that 20% of base became commonplace. We were really cranking upgrades. It was a good deal. And again, we got a little lucky. We had the tax credit, which certainly helped, but we made our own luck through humility and aligned partnerships that were non-traditional. Tim Costello, who spoke 2 nights ago, became my best friend. We were the largest user of Envision. BDX was our business partner at that time. Bridgeway, who made videos and training, and those people became our partners. So Through this contemporary ability to understand, our trust went through the roof, okay? So I went to credibility. What was our credibility? In the design center world, we have 4 cores of credibility. These cores of credibility aren't unique to design centers. They're really about elevating trust, but we could figure into that specific cores that made us trustworthy in a design center. The first one was integrity. And integrity became the foundation of our structure that stood. Integrity is so much more than just telling the truth. Integrity is really about harmony in the home building industry. It's about congruence. It's about congruence with the home builder. In December of 2005, Ira Fulton, who's now 93 years old, the founder of Fulton Homes, he came into the new design center that we had built. Does anybody know what Fulton Homes slogan is in Phoenix? Home, proud to own and proud to build. So Mr. Fulton comes walking in. Mr. Fulton was a big man and powerful personality, and we just had this great opportunity. He says, Pat, he says, what's that over there? This was a brand new 13,000 square foot design center. It was beautiful. And I looked down and the carpet had a horrible stain on it. And we were about to open the next week. And Ira says to me, he says, Pat, do you think I'm proud to build a home that where I'm selling the options, the carpet has a stain on it? I said, oh my goodness. Anyway, so I had to learn the hard way to harmonize with them. The second piece of that is intent, is what was our intent? That's the ground floor, what we do and how we do it. But that had to be done with a digital design center, folks. Visualization is so important. The home buyer has to have anonymity and the ability to shop in their home. Thank you.
Sorry, Pat, to cut you off.
No, it's all
Great
good.
information, but I want to make sure that we have a good chance to listen to Jane, and we can come back to a lot of what you were talking about. Great points, and appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, good afternoon. What I wanted to share with you today is an overview of some ideas that I hope will help your businesses that are timely topics for today when we think about, as a builder, how do we offer home personalization? So what you see on the screen is a continuum of choice that we have, ranging from total customer control and choice on the left with custom homes, kind of you dream it, we'll build it, you pay for it, and all the way on the other side to used homes, which certainly don't offer any customer control or choice over the finishes and features in the home. And certainly that is something that as an industry we should be leveraging against the used home and resale market. And in between, you have a variety of different ways that builders can offer personalization to their customers. I want to point out that none of these are inherently wrong or right. Certainly any of these can be viable business strategies if you choose something that aligns with your business goals, with your target market, your architectural product, your competitive position in the marketplace. So just looking at the 4 that are highlighted, starting from the left, we have semi-custom homes. That's essentially an a la carte personalization experience, choose everything individually, plus what we call special requests that some of you may call custom requests. So that would be the most choice in a typical personalization model. Moving then after that is a typical personalized home. We don't use the word customized home because the customers don't have the ability to choose anything. They choose from a carefully curated, wide selection of styles and products at different investment levels, but staying within that box and potentially not having any customer special requests. And then what I'm going to talk a little bit about today is something that I think every builder should be thinking about. How can we take advantage of doing something with design collections, and where does that fit into our business model? So we have 2 kind of variations here as a personalization strategy. One is design collections, potentially with some option packages, maybe with some a la carte choice as well, that are sold through the design studio. So there's still design guidance baked into that. And then we have simpler design collections that potentially have fewer decision-making points. Maybe the customer's just saying yes or no or A, B, C, or D 3 or 4 or 5 times. And those design collections could be presented by their new home consultant or potentially even online without any design guidance. Again, none of these are inherently wrong or right, but it might be worth exploring some things that we can consider doing as home builders. So when we look at the strategy of design collections and how do we create a streamlined decision-making experience, because certainly baked into collections, the concept that we have pre-curated combinations of things using our expertise, inherently it is a streamlined process, typically internally as well as for customers. So I think what happens a lot is we have a variety of different terminology that's used. I find this even when talking with builders. I think customers have different ideas of what a design collection or a package is. And if we're not all using the same terminology for the same things, we can create confusion and frustration. So as a builder, think about how you're going to articulate if you embrace any of these concepts. We would propose that a design collection is the more macro. It is a compilation of coordinated products that usually reflect a general design style or even a color scheme that is applied to the entire home or perhaps to a kitchen or a bathroom. And that could be your cabinets, counters, flooring. Maybe there's plumbing and lighting and other products in there as well, maybe not. A package might be a smaller group that could be an add-on or what we might call an enhancement to a collection. And typically this is a combination of fewer products that could similarly be aligned along a design style or maybe a finish, but it could also be a lifestyle need package, such as a gourmet kitchen option, or maybe some type of ultra storage convenience option or something like that. We can think a little bit about how design collections can be used as a strategy. What is our business policy or the intended use? Why are we doing this? And I'm going to propose 3 different ways you as builders might think of pre-combining products into collections. The first is design inspiration. Here we'd say it's a starting point. Your expert design team puts together a combination of products to shortcut the customers in understanding what the different looks and styles are that they can create from within the products that you offer. So here it's intended to be a starting point. There's no policy or rule or regulation that it has to be an ending point. You might have a customer that says, oh, I want that mountain modern look, but can I change the cabinet? Absolutely, let's go to it. So it fast tracks and streamlines maybe a commonality of where the customer wants to get to. You would still offer a la carte choice. When you can show a variety of different design styles as pre-curated collections right from the start, you should be able to build some trust and confidence in your potential customers that, yes, if I buy from this builder, I'll be able to create the look that I want. So it definitely can be a confidence builder. And the next one we have is collections as a personalization strategy. This would be in lieu of a la carte choice. A lot of builders are embracing this. And that is because when you think about the consumer psyche, many customers these days are looking for a quicker, easier solution, and they want to get baked in expertise in all areas of their lives. So having collections as an actual personalization strategy where we don't offer any a la carte choice, but we have pre-curated design collections is a way to get on trend with a consumer purchase psychology that's very prevalent right now. Inside of that, you can have a few different policies. You can say, and this is intended to be an ending point. So it's not intended that the customers can necessarily pick apart your collections. So a typical policy, not that we'd say these words to the customers, it's mandatory. We put these collections together. We believe they'll create a beautiful home for you, and choose one. There can be some allowable adjustments, but I would say these would be baked in. So you might have a strategy or a structure to your collections where you say inside of this certain collection at this investment level, you have a choice of 2 cabinets or 2 backsplashes. So there is some consumer choice, but it is pre-curated and still baked in. And the last bullet kind of represents what happens oftentimes with builders that maybe didn't have the greatest strategic intent or business structure to their collections. Perhaps they just put some pretty items together, which is part but not really the whole game. And when we hit difficult times, what happens is sales says, I can sell this home if you'll allow the customer to go out of the predetermined collections. And That's where we start to break down the internal efficiencies that we thought we would achieve. It could have been a driver for a reason why we wanted to do collections in the first place. And now we're not getting the volume that maybe we thought we would with the cost savings or the cycle time efficiencies or things like that. And then a last thought on using collections, and I think this is where the verbiage gets tricky and sometimes customers or potential customers don't really understand what builders are saying, is many builders are choosing to not specify every QMI or inventory home from scratch. So internally, we can create these design collections so that as we roll out large numbers of inventory homes, we can take a collection with some packages off the shelf and streamline the time to market there. In this case, it is a starting and ending point, but there's no customer choice. If the customer wants the Hawthorne floor plan on that home site, they're going to get that collection with some packages that are put into it. Again, bullet point on the bottom is, unless that home's not selling. And then we say, let's check the construction status, and oh my goodness, yes, we can still change the carpet, so let's go ahead and do that. So I understand that we have to be nimble and in some ways reactive to the market, but I think if we start off being strategic and smarter, we won't have to then break down our own collections. All right. We have a long time saying at my company, pretty is good, smart is better, have both. So I think any type of collection strategy for any use starts with the why. Why are we doing it for the customer? Why are we doing it for the builder? Potential customer benefits are pretty easy. The customer in many areas of their lives, like I said, looking for a quicker, easier way to get to the end result. A lot of customers, like the transparency of collections. There's not as many decision points, so there may be fewer price points or what we call investment amounts. And it's easier for the customer or the potential customer to know going in, what is my total investment on this home going to be? Many buyers believe it's less confusing. It feels overwhelming for them to go into a design studio with all kinds of a la carte choice. On the other hand, you have some customers that absolutely want to do that and can't wait and have been waiting their whole lives to do that. And some customers believe they'll get a better end result this way. They just don't trust themselves in terms of their own capabilities, so they feel that we'll get some baked-in design advice. But really, I think what matters is thinking about it from the builder standpoint. Why might we choose to embed collections into our business policy and our personalization strategy? And it could be maybe just for our lower priced architectural product series. Maybe we're moving our whole company in that direction. Maybe we're not going to do it at all. But the types of things that we look at that I would encourage you guys to look at would be things like the following. Getting an interdepartmental team together from all the departments you see here, plus the others, certainly purchasing and IT, and every department has a say in this, and understanding what our priorities are in these goals. What you see on the screen are some common goals, but having all the departments together believe we are moving in this direction because of a prioritization of goals that are then going to become the drivers for all the business decisions we make when we create our collections together. Operationally, you might want to reduce cycle time. That could be time from home purchase to finalization of options. You could want to reduce cycle time from start of construction to end of construction. So being specific on that. You might want to go to collections to reduce construction and operational complexity, just making it easier, quicker, more error-proof to build those homes and deliver phenomenal homes as expectations are for the customers. It could just be a sales and marketing decision. You feel like there's a lane in your competitive landscape that nobody owns, or maybe there's a builder in there offering collections but not very well, and you're thinking, hey, this is a way to attract more customers to our company, and to capture extra sales that we're missing, or to move the company in that direction. In that case, so important to be able to leverage the whys of why you're doing this and the how of how it works in your company to make sure that you're grabbing those customers. From a financial perspective, there are many ways to drive profit with this strategy. You could look at reducing cost. Perhaps when you are guaranteeing your suppliers and your trade partners a smaller scope of work, there are some cost savings that you can achieve there, and we've certainly seen this play out, especially for large volume builders. You could also look at driving profit. Maybe you think there's more margin optimization when you group products together and create value for the entirety of it. Maybe you think there's actually just flat out revenue optimization that you could do, that you could sell more revenue dollars per home. So different business goals that you might have. And then lastly, the thing that we also look at are what we call input factors or strategy drivers. And I would encourage you to do all this before you think of combining what cabinet looks nice with what countertop. The business endeavor has to come first. So we look at things like corporate strengths. We don't want to come up with a strategy that the builder can't support internally. If your IT department is not ready to overhaul an a la carte system that has, tens of thousands of items in it, and be able to build these packages and collections inside of your IT system, then it's not going to be a good strategy. What are our marketing strengths and sales strengths? The sales team has to learn how to sell a little bit of a different way. So thinking about implementation and playing to the strengths that you have as a company. Certainly, we look at company growth. Here we're looking at a lot of builders that want to grow substantially in volume. We'll look at collections as a way to do that. If you're looking at geographic expansion, quite often this seems to be a good plug and play method. We're going to streamline our design selections experience so that we can expand into other geographic markets and enter the market quicker there. It could be growth in terms of coming up with a townhome product that you feel they don't have the discretionary dollars to invest for a la carte design. And perhaps it would be better to come up with some amazing design collections that market can get excited about for less incremental dollars on top of their base investment into the home. As I said before, kind of looking at the brand image and the competitive landscape and thinking a little bit about, where can we own that lane in the marketplace. Certainly we look at architectural product as well. And here we're thinking about things like maybe you're the only townhome community with outdoor living area. So let's come up with an add-on enhancement or package that provides an outdoor living solution. So, not just thinking only about the interior finishes, but really thinking about the lifestyle in that type of product and making sure that the collections and the features and finishes align with how someone's going to live in that home. And the target market as well. We want to really understand some of the lifestyle elements. So it's not just about design with collections, maybe some of your packages or your additional a la carte options that are layered on top of those collections. Maybe they speak to the lifestyle that the target market needs in terms of a lot of things we've talked about today, healthy home package, or maybe something with, indoor air quality, or it could be something related to the sound systems or things like that. So really think about the livability and not just the pretty aesthetics when you're creating design collections. And lastly, I want to say we always talk about our trademark phrase. It's kind of like think like a consumer, act like a retailer. And I'd encourage you to have some great conversations with your other leaders in your businesses about how do we think like a consumer. If we put ourselves in the consumer mindset, what are they looking for if we do decide to offer some types of collections? How can we satisfy them? How can we get ahead of their wants and needs and thrill and delight them? And certainly from a retailing perspective as well, we can and should be focused on the financial objectives as well as internal efficiencies and all the other good things you get with collections. So I hope I've given you some fun ideas to consider in your businesses.
Thank you very much, Jane. I'm going to take the privilege of the first question. And Mike, I'm going to direct it to you. Jane, you laid out kind of a structure and a process there for how all of this can fit together. And Mike, I think you'll agree with this, but disagree if you want, that too often builders use technology to create a process when it doesn't exist there to begin with. They don't have the process in place. So now that said, I want to connect this digital collection, digital design center, to the actual design center. If we're going to have an enchanted experience, people having an enchanted experience, they're going to come through to us first through a digital interaction. Mm-hmm. How do we use that digital environment to begin to create that kind of experience from the very get-go? So when they get in front of a person, that we're continuing something that's already begun.
Gotcha. Yeah, so lots of parts there.
Yes.
think I got them all. Yeah, so I'll steal part of your catchphrase because I really like it. It's a think like a customer. And so is they're figuring it out if they can think through where do they want to be, and they start with the end in mind. You'd start off the question with a lot of times people look at the technology as being the system. And in reality, the builder or the business needs to go through and figure out what is our system, what is our desired end game, and then how are we going to leverage technology? How are we going to leverage people? How are we going to leverage these other tools so that we can get to that desired outcome? So I think your phrase that's on screen right now, think like the customer, act like the retailer, it's just thinking, where do we want to be? And then how do I use all these things to get there?
I open that to other people on the panel as well, because I think there's a lot to discuss about the kind of the best practices around a digital design center that I think, Jane, you really got into some great best practices just and design centers, but not specifically to digital design centers. So can you talk about that a little bit as well, please?
Yes, let's get going on digital, people. Our industry has a great opportunity in front of us to catch up to other industries, to take advantage of all the great tech like Mike's solution and all the great tech that's out there. I think that customers want to be able to shop online at home prior to coming into the design studio, and then to be able to use those same tools during their design appointment with their design consultant. But these tools have to be, if they're customer facing, they have to be configured in a way where it's easy to digest information, where the fluidity of the experience doesn't create friction points. And we work so hard over many decades, right, to optimize our customer experience inside our design studios. We have to work just as hard to make sure that our customers' experience with the customer-facing design studio tech, the catalogs, the visualization tools, that they complement and are molded into our omni-channel experience, and that it's not like we're giving them a link and go look at this and we haven't really optimized it. So I think it's exciting new opportunities.
And we've been doing it for a while with Studio Chateau, as it went from options online to Studio Chateau. And the buyer has been shopping from home from probably the late 90s and doing that whole thing. It was a learning experience, I will tell you that, because what happens is as Jane was saying, the customer needs to be easy, and the customer needs to understand what the options are, how much they're going to cost and add value to the house. And then, so you need to think like the customer when you're writing the option, and then your backside needs to speak like the business side to the general contractor. It's been great. It added value. When you have a system that takes you online, we immediately jumped up 15% in sales that first year in doing that. And it's what the consumer wants. Today, everybody's online. They're looking for everything. Also, keep your pricing. You don't want to be higher than the retailers. Let's just go there. But because they're easily shopping, but just remember there is an experience involved if you're giving them the whole design experience. I love the online.
Pat, and if your online experience looks cheap, you're reinforcing the cost consciousness of the consumer, and it's even harder to build trust that way. How do you kind of, in that environment, establish that? You had some great principles, and I wanted you to flesh that out in the digital environment.
You've got to give the home buyer the ability to validate the price that you gave, that you are giving them, that it is fair and it's appropriate. And you also have to be able to communicate that you have job site intelligence, that the home that they're buying and they're moving into, you know exactly what's going on in that home, and the costs that you're giving them are right, and they're the best cost for the best possible product. And with all 35 to 40 different subcontractors typically working on a home, job site intelligence is very difficult to communicate. But if we're going to unburden them and really enchant them, they've got to feel like we love the experience as much as they do.
I'd love to hear more about Mike's digital solutions and like where you feel that it's going to go in the future and how it's serving builders now.
Yeah. So when we started building out our solution, I didn't want to reinvent the wheel. I'm not smart enough to do that. So I went to the car buying experience. And so I looked through and went to every different website, built out a ton of different cars. My wife was not really excited about that, but went through that process. And what I found, there were a lot of little tools that really matched what we do in our industry. I'm sure everybody in the audience has gone through and wondered why you have to get a better sound system when you buy a sunroof, but that's no different than we've got these curated collections, and it's just how you're going to buy the house. And so walking through that and seeing the real-time feedback as quick as you're selecting something, you're getting updating pricing. That's what we wanted to bring to the buyer so that they could go through that, giving them the option to build out multiple different scenarios where you can build your house one way and build it 5 different ways. And then we're starting to look at tools that would allow us to then go in and find patterns across not just the houses that we sold, but the houses that are being designed, and more on the forward-looking piece, so that we can pull out trends that we think are coming.
So like the analytics for the builder to be able to understand why is someone choosing this, but then they're not they're choosing it to configure, but they're not selecting it in the end. Things
Exactly.
Like that. Yeah, that would be valuable information.
And you do have to invest in the digital interactive environment. Let's face it, my 32-year-old son, when he's looking at housing and going online to look at that, is not going to put up with a website that looks like it was built in the early 90s.
And you also, I think you always, the biggest fear I think you've got is making sure that you've got an accurate enough representation where you're leading the buyer in the right direction, but I think you've got to walk the line that you don't want to show them something that you can't actually build. And so the digital things, I think you're always trying to balance that piece out.
You can spend a lot of money there, and sometimes it's misguided money in the digital environment. And I think that's maybe one of the advantages, and I had this conversation with a gentleman in the audience earlier, Keith, that larger companies do have an advantage because they can leverage money across technology money across a broader base. And that means that companies who are competing with larger home builders need to be more thoughtful and aggressive about how they do things. More thoughtful and aggressive at the same time. Try that one.
It is expensive, but I asked the question, what does it cost you to underwhelm a buyer? What does it cost to underwhelm today's contemporary buyer? And what solutions are we working toward together to facilitate this cost? You as the home builder are not, us as the home builders are not the only folks who have to invest in these technologies. There are flooring contractors, there are cabinet contractors, countertop contractors generating massive revenue in this scope. So we need to work together to deliver the solutions for a contemporary buyer.
I love the home building industry. I love being around people who are involved in residential construction. They are much more thoughtful and much more empathetic than people I see. Although the iron workers are a lot of fun. You should go hang out with them sometime. But my big criticism about the home building industry is it's slow to change and it's slow to adopt new technologies. And I think your point, Pat, about that we need to rethink what we're offering our customers, and my greatest example of that is the New York Times, which is no longer a media company. It does not do media, it's a technology company. And that's entirely what they do. And home builders need to think along those lines. The famous line was, the mistake the railroad companies made was they thought they were in the railroad business. So I think that we're in that same kind of environment and technology, and I think it especially comes to fruition in the digital design area. There are a lot of other places you can get away with it, but digital design centers. Thank you all very much for joining us for these last 5 panels over 2.5 days. Thank you very much to our panelists. You guys are fabulous. I really appreciate it. Thank you all.
And a round of applause for Paul.
Absolutely.